A man is sitting inside a metal chamber. The pressure drops, the air disappears, and before anyone can do anything, he's floating in conditions closer to outer space than to the room you're sitting in right now. That actually happened at NASA in 1965, and somehow the man walked away just fine. But here's the thing, most people have no idea what being exposed to a vacuum actually does to the human body. And if you've seen any sci-fi movie ever made, I can almost guarantee everything you think you know is completely wrong. So let's fix that, because the real story is so much stranger and honestly so much more terrifying than anything Hollywood ever came up with. In 1965, a technician at NASA's Manned Spacecraft Center in Houston was inside a space simulation chamber, basically a giant metal room designed to replicate the conditions of outer space. These chambers suck out almost all the air to test spacesuits, equipment, and how the human body handles extreme conditions. Routine stuff for NASA. High stakes, but routine. Except on this particular day, something went wrong with his spacesuit. The pressure seal failed, and in an instant this man was exposed to a near vacuum. A pressure so low it's basically the same as floating 150,000 feet above Earth with no protection whatsoever. Now your first instinct might be, okay, he's dead, right? That's it. Show's over. Thanks for watching. But this wasn't even close to the biggest problem. Because what actually happens to a human body in a vacuum is so counterintuitive, so bizarre, and, weirdly, so survivable, that it completely rewrites everything you thought you knew about space and the human body. Let's start with the myth. You know the one. It's in every space movie ever. Some poor astronaut loses their helmet, and within 2 seconds they look like an overinflated balloon before spectacularly exploding into 1,000 pieces. Cut to the hero looking horrified. Roll credits. Here's the truth. Your body will not explode in a vacuum. I know. Disappointing. But stick with me, because what actually happens is somehow worse and more fascinating at the same time. Your skin is actually remarkably good at holding things together. It's flexible, it's tough, and it does a surprisingly solid job of keeping your insides where they belong, even when the outside pressure disappears. So no explosion, no dramatic pop. You will not become a human water balloon. But here's where it gets interesting, and this is the part nobody talks about. There is one thing that will kill you almost immediately if you do it instinctively, and it's the most natural thing in the world: holding your breath. Think about it. You're suddenly in a vacuum. Your brain screams danger. You gasp, you clench, you hold. And that single decision would be the last you ever make. Here's why. The air inside your lungs is under pressure. Your body is used to a world where the pressure outside matches the pressure inside. But the moment outside pressure drops to nearly zero, that air in your lungs has nowhere to go, except outward, fast. And if your airway is closed, if you're holding your breath, that pressure has to go somewhere, and it will tear your lungs apart from the inside like a paper bag with too much air in it. So if you ever find yourself accidentally teleported into the vacuum of space, and statistically this is unlikely, but just in case, you need to remember one rule: exhale. Keep your mouth open. Let the air out. Your lungs will thank you later, but here's the part that gets really wild. Even if you follow the rule, even if you keep your airway open and your lungs intact, you're still in serious trouble. Because a vacuum doesn't just stop you from breathing in, it actively pulls oxygen out of your blood. That's not a figure of speech, that's physics. Oxygen moves from high concentration to low concentration. That's just how gases work. Normally, the air you breathe has more oxygen than your blood, so oxygen flows in. But in a vacuum, there's essentially zero oxygen outside your body, which means the oxygen in your blood starts moving outward instead. You're not just suffocating, your blood is being deoxygenated in reverse. And this is why the ticking clock here is not minutes, it's not even 30 seconds. You have 10 to 15 seconds of consciousness. That's it. About as long as it takes to read this paragraph out loud. After that, your brain, deprived of oxygen with shocking speed, shuts down. You pass out. And if no one repressurizes the environment around you very quickly, you're not coming back from that. Things get even stranger from here. Because in those 10 to 15 seconds before you lose consciousness, your body is doing some truly remarkable and horrifying things simultaneously. Remember our NASA technician, the one whose suit failed? This is what he reported experiencing in those final moments before he blacked out. His last conscious sensation was the feeling of the saliva on his tongue beginning to boil. Let that sink in for a second. Not boiling like a pot of water on a stove, that requires heat. This was boiling caused by pressure. or rather by the sudden lack of it. Here's the science in plain English. Liquids boil when the pressure around them drops below a certain point. It's why water boils at a lower temperature on top of a mountain than at sea level, less atmospheric pressure pushing down on it. In a near vacuum, that threshold is basically room temperature, which means any liquid exposed to those conditions will immediately start to bubble and vaporize. The fluids in your eyes, the moisture lining your lungs, the saliva in your mouth, all of it starts to boil, not because you're hot, but because the pressure holding those liquids together as liquids simply vanishes. This is sometimes called ebullition, which sounds like a fancy word for something that would absolutely ruin your afternoon. And this is exactly what the NASA technician felt in that chamber. He felt his saliva boiling on his tongue. He saw his hand begin to swell as the fluids in his tissues started to expand. His last thought before everything went dark was reportedly something along the lines of, "I need to get out of here immediately," which, fair enough. And then he was unconscious. Now here's the real question, and this is the part the movie always cuts away from. What happens next? The answer is both terrifying and, honestly, kind of beautiful. Nothing irreversible had happened yet. The technicians outside the chamber realized immediately something was wrong. The suit pressure indicators had flatlined. They began emergency repressurization right away, pumping air back into the chamber as fast as the systems would allow. And within about 30 seconds of losing consciousness, the pressure returned. Oxygen flooded back. And the technician, alone in that chamber, swollen, his tongue blistered from the boiling, completely unconscious, started to come back. He woke up. His first words, according to reports, were describing exactly what he had felt, the sensation of his saliva boiling. Not "where am I?" or "what happened?" His brain, the moment it had oxygen again, just immediately wanted to tell someone what that was like. And here's the most shocking part of this entire story. He had no permanent damage, none, walked out of there, went home, probably ate dinner and told his family a story they did not believe. The human body, it turns out, is extraordinarily resilient against vacuum exposure, but only within a very specific, very narrow window. Under 2 minutes, and with rapid repressurization, the body can bounce back almost completely. The swelling goes down, the boiled fluids recondense. The oxygen returns to the blood. The brain restarts like a computer that just needed a hard reboot. Past 2 minutes, though, that's when things get truly and permanently bad. Lack of oxygen for that long causes irreversible brain damage, and then death follows not long after. So it's not that space doesn't kill you, it absolutely does. It's just that it gives you a bizarrely specific and very short grace period, and if someone's paying attention, you might just survive it. Now here's what modern people almost universally get wrong about this, and it's important. Most people think that if they were exposed to a vacuum, the cold would kill them first. Space is cold, right? Like absurdly, incomprehensibly cold. Negative 270 degrees Celsius kind of cold. But here's the counterintuitive reality. You wouldn't freeze, not quickly anyway. In space, there's no air to conduct heat away from your body. Heat transfer requires a medium, something to carry the warmth away. In a vacuum, there's nothing. The only way your body loses heat is through radiation, and radiation is slow, much slower than your oxygen situation. You'd black out from oxygen loss long before you felt meaningfully cold. Space would kill you with efficiency, not temperature. And one more thing most people miss completely. Your blood would not boil. I know we talked about ebullition, and technically your surface fluids start to vaporize, but your actual blood? It's contained inside blood vessels, under its own pressure, and your circulatory system keeps it pressurized long enough that it doesn't immediately boil the way your saliva does. Your blood would still be doing its job right up until the moment your brain ran out of oxygen and told your heart to stop. Which brings us to the big lesson hiding inside this story. The human body is not fragile. It's not a glass figure that shatters the moment conditions get extreme. It's an incredibly sophisticated survival machine that has spent millions of years getting very, very good at staying alive in terrible situations. A man was accidentally exposed to the vacuum of space and walked away with nothing but a wild story and a briefly sore tongue. That's extraordinary. That's not luck. That's biology doing what biology does. But the story also teaches something equally important. The difference between survivable and survived is almost always time. And the people around you. The NASA technician didn't survive because he was tougher than space. He survived because other people were watching, reacted fast, and fixed the problem before the 2-minute window closed. In the most extreme environment the human body can encounter, what saved him wasn't technology or training or even his own actions. It was someone else hitting a button fast enough. And somehow that feels like the most human ending to this story possible. So next time you're watching a sci-fi movie and someone gets sucked out of an airlock and immediately explodes, you can do what all truly insufferable people do at movie night. Pause it, turn to your friends, and explain in great detail exactly why that's wrong. You're welcome.